Hi, my name is Olivia Young. I'm in Chemistry 211, Section 127, and I'm going to be doing a tutorial on thin layer chromatography, also known as TLC. Pictured are the materials needed for TLC. TLC is used to test the purity of a substance or to separate out its components. In this experiment, I used TLC to separate out the dyes in 3 different markers. The materials include a jar where the solvent will be placed and the TLC will run, tweezers to place the TLC plate in the jar, filter paper to saturate the air in the jar with the solvent, solvent that is placed in the jar to move the components of the plate, markers to serve as the compounds, and the TLC plate for running the experiment. Before beginning the experiment, make sure you are wearing proper lab attire, which includes long pants and closed-toed shoes, a lab coat, goggles, hair pulled back, and gloves. I began the experiment by marking the TLC plate with a starting line and with 3 dashes labeled P for purple, B for blue, and G for green for each marker. Next, I dotted the markers on their corresponding lines. If you had a vial of liquid compound you were doing this experiment with, you would use a glass spotter to put it on the TLC plate. Then I placed the filter paper on the wall of the jar. Next, I squirted solvent into the jar, making sure to fill the jar lower than the starting line of the TLC plate so it does not dissolve the compounds upon being put in the jar. I also made sure to saturate the filter paper as well, because as mentioned, this will saturate the air in the jar, which helps the solvents to travel faster. In this case, I chose ethanol, a polar solvent, because the dye in the markers are also polar. The polar dyes would not have moved in a nonpolar solvent because there are no polar interactions to move the dye up the plate. Next, I used the tweezers to insert the TLC plate into the jar. I then waited a sufficient amount of time until the TLC was done running. You know it is done when the solvent has reached around 1 to 2 centimeters from the top of the plate. When it's done, you use your tweezers to remove it from the jar and use a pencil to trace the line where the solvent stopped. In this case, all of the spots are visible on the plate because I used colorful dyes. Most compounds are not visible to the eye, and you must use UV light or iodine to expose the spots on the TLC plate. You would do this by putting it under a UV light and using a pencil to trace the spots, or placing it in a jar of iodine until the spots turn yellow. Now that you have your final TLC plate, you can calculate RF values. To calculate RF values, you must first measure from the starting position to the spot whose RF you desire, and then divide that by the measurement from the starting line to the solvent line. This can be done for every spot on the TLC plate. That is all. Thank you.